Okay, so how exactly do you identify an invisible suspect? Imagine for a second that you're a forensic detective, but instead of dusting for fingerprints or running DNA, your suspect is a mysterious, totally microscopic compound. The atoms are way too small to actually see, but you still need to figure out its exact chemical identity. Well, welcome to this cinematic explainer. I am your host, Dr. Chem, and today we are stepping right into the chemical interrogation room.
We're going to dive into this incredibly fascinating forensic technique that chemists use all over the world. We are going to decode exact molecular formulas from literally nothing more than ashes in gas. I know, it sounds a bit like magic, but it is pure, elegant chemistry. Let's get started.
Section 1. The Unknown Hydrocarbon Mystery. So we kick off our forensic investigation with our mysterious suspect. Let's just say it's an unknown hydrocarbon compound, something containing carbon, hydrogen, and maybe even a little oxygen. Now, since we obviously can't just pop it under a standard microscope and count the atoms one by one, we have to force this compound into revealing its hidden atomic secrets. And to pull this off, we rely on a fundamental, unbreakable rule of nature, the law of conservation of mass. This is basically the bedrock of our whole analysis. It tells us that mass is never created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. What that means for us is that if we take our suspect and completely destroy it, say by burning it to a crisp, every single carbon and hydrogen atom from that original sample has to be perfectly preserved and totally accounted for in whatever products are left over.
Section 2. The Combustion Interrogation.
Right, let's actually take our unknown compound into the lab and subject it to the ultimate interrogation, combustion. We're going to take a very carefully weighed sample of our suspect and burn it inside a specialized apparatus that's completely flooded with pure oxygen. If you look on the left here, you'll see the classic old-school method. The sample goes into a furnace, we burn it, and the escaping gases don't just vent out into the room. Instead, they are routed through some very specific chemical traps. The first one is a water absorber, and the second is a carbon dioxide absorber. Now on the right, you can see a modern dynamic flash combustion system. It does the exact same thing, but it flash burns the sample at an absolutely incredible 1800 degrees Celsius. It uses carrier gases like helium and computerized detectors to map the entire output in literally seconds.
But no matter which machine you use, the crucial takeaway is exactly the same. When we burn this hydrocarbon completely in oxygen, only carbon dioxide and water are produced. Every single bit of carbon in our original suspect becomes CO2, and all of the hydrogen becomes H2O. By carefully weighing those two chemical traps before we strike the match, and then weighing them again after the burn, that increase in mass tells us exactly how much of those newly formed gases we've captured. Boom! We've trapped our evidence.
Which brings us to Section 3, Decoding the Empirical Formula.
Now that the combustion interrogation is over, we've got our raw clues, the masses of the captured carbon dioxide and water. But here's the thing, raw mass doesn't just hand us the chemical formula. We actually have to decode this data to find what we call the empirical formula. And remember, the empirical formula is simply the most reduced, simplest atomic ratio of the elements hiding inside our suspect. To get there, we use a classic three-step process that is pretty much your best friend in chemical forensics. Step 1. Convert our mass in grams into moles. Because moles act as our universal chemical translator, letting us compare different atoms fairly. Step 2. Divide all those mole values by the smallest one to find a simple ratio. And finally, Step 3. If we end up with any messy fractions, we multiply till whole.
Let's look a little closer at Step 1. First off, we need to mathematically extract the carbon out of that trapped carbon dioxide gas. To do this, we take the mass of the CO2 we collected and multiply it by a very specific ratio. The molar mass of pure carbon, which is 12.011 grams, divided by the molar mass of the entire CO2 molecule, which is 44.01 grams. Doing this essentially strips away the oxygen from our math, telling us exactly how many grams of pure, unadulterated carbon were hiding in our original suspect. Next, we do the exact same sort of thing for the trapped water to extract the hydrogen. But, hey, there's a really vital detail here that you do not want to miss. Look at the chemical formula for water. It's H2O. That means there are 2 moles of hydrogen for every 1 mole of water. So instead of using the mass of a single hydrogen atom, we absolutely must use 2.016 grams for the hydrogen divided by the total mass of the water, which is 18.015 grams. Seriously, if you forget that too, your whole investigation is going to completely fall apart.
Okay, but what about oxygen? Oxygen is a remarkably sneaky element in combustion analysis. Think about it. We literally flooded the chamber with pure oxygen to burn the sample in the first place. We definitely can't trust that the oxygen sitting in the CO2 or the H2O came exclusively from our suspect. So we have to deduce it. We take the original starting mass of our whole sample, and we subtract the mass of the carbon we just calculated, and then we subtract the mass of the hydrogen. If there's literally any mass left over after that, that remaining unassigned mass has to be the oxygen that was inside our compound.
Let's actually organize this extracted evidence by looking at a real case file. We've got a suspect compound here that actually turns out to be ascorbic acid. Let's assume a 100-gram sample just to make the percentages super easy to work with. We take our masses of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen and divide each by their own molar mass, converting grams straight into moles. We get 3.407 moles of carbon, 4.544 moles of hydrogen, and 3.406 moles of oxygen. Now we hit step 2, divide by small. The smallest mole value we have here is 3.406. When we divide them all by that number, we get a ratio of 1 carbon to 1 oxygen, but wait, 1.33 hydrogen?
And that slightly annoying decimal brings us right to step 3. We currently have a ratio of 1 to 1.33 to 1, but in chemistry you absolutely cannot have 1/3 of an hydrogen atom attached to a molecule. It just doesn't work. Atoms are whole units. So we must multiply till whole. To turn that 1.33 into a nice, clean whole number, we multiply it by 3, which gets us roughly 4. But to keep the whole ratio totally far, we have to multiply everything by 3. That leaves us with 3 carbons, 4 hydrogens, and 3 oxygens. And there it is. Our empirical sketch is finally complete. C3H4O3.
Section 4. The true molecular identity.
We've done some really great work so far. We have our empirical sketch, C3H4O3. But, a sketch is just a sketch. It isn't a high-definition photograph. To actually close this case, we have to uncover the suspect's true molecular identity. And we really have to keep the difference straight here. The empirical formula we just calculated, that's simply the most reduced ratio. It just tells us the proportions. The molecular formula, on the other hand, is the actual, literal count of atoms inside a single, real molecule of the substance. Fortunately for us, the true molecular formula is always an exact integer multiple of that simplest empirical sketch. It could be exactly the same, it might be twice as large, or maybe even 3 times as large.
So to find that specific multiplier, which chemists often call the N factor, we need one final piece of independent evidence. We need to know the actual physical weight of 1 mole of our unknown compound. In modern labs, we definitely don't guess this. We use incredibly powerful instruments like mass spectrometers to just give us this data. For our ascorbic acid suspect, the lab report comes back and tells us the actual molar mass of the complete molecule is 176 AMU, or 176 grams per mole.
Now we just compare that real-world weight to what we currently have on paper. We calculate the mass of just our empirical formula, C3H4O3. If we add up the mass of 3 carbons, 4 hydrogens, and 3 oxygens, it totals roughly 88.06 grams per mole.
Honestly, the math here is probably the most satisfying part of the whole investigation. We take the actual molar mass of the real molecule, 176, and we divide it by the mass of our little empirical sketch, 88. 176 divided by 88 dramatically reveals our N-factor multiplier. It's exactly 2. This means our actual molecule is exactly twice as heavy and twice as large as our basic sketch.
Which leads us straight to the final reveal. We take that multiplier of 2 and we multiply all the subscripts in our empirical sketch. 2 times C3H4O3 gives us C6H8O6. Just think about that for a second. By analyzing nothing more than the trapped gases from a microscopic fire, we have definitively identified our suspect's true molecular formula, C6H8O6. Ladies and gentlemen, our unknown suspect is vitamin C.
So, as we wrap up this forensic explainer, I really want you to take a moment and think about the sheer scale of this. We use the unbending law of conservation of mass to turn literal ash and vapor into precise mathematical certainty. With modern analytical instruments out there capable of flash-burning samples at 1800 degrees and decoding these intricate molecular secrets in mere seconds, I want to leave you with this question. What invisible, completely undiscovered molecular mysteries are out there right now, just waiting for you to interrogate them next? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.